And we have a very special treat for you because, Justin and I do agree upon a lot of things, but then there are things that we don't agree upon. And this shows about all the things that we don't, some of the things that we don't agree upon.
But I'm always right.
He wishes. So the first topic is going to be a topic of my choice that Justin doesn't know about. The second topic is going to be a topic of his choice that I don't know about. And then the last topic is going to be about universal health care.
Yes, if you want a preview of what we're going to be talking about, we promised in episode 32 that this would be something we'd flesh out. So if you want to stop now and go back to that episode, it'd be a good opportunity to get a good gist of where we're going with it. And welcome to Conservative Talk. My name's Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And as always, we like to remind everyone, all of our viewers, to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any piece of production that we put out, on any of the platforms that we put it out on. Make sure you're also hitting the subscribe button. That way you can stay up to date with any of the episodes that we put out. And you'll never miss a moment of our content or a moment of Jamie's wonderfully smiling face. Also, if you're able to, please go to our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting the sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and help us out with what you're able to, because it's truly because of our sponsors that we're able to produce all this content and put it out as much as we do and reach a much broader audience with that. So with that in mind, Jamie, you want to jump into your first reminder?
My first reminder is don't forget to boycott hometown headlines. Y'all are doing a great job. Thank you for keeping up the messaging.
Now, they're actually beginning to feel it. And we are seeing the responses from that.
Yep.
Namely, we've had folks looking into it that are.
Oh, not just that.
Yeah.
When they call it, want me to come back as a subscriber.
That's it.
Okay.
So, Jamie, you want to give your second reminder?
Yes. 31 days until we cancel Stacey Abrams.
Oh, I can't wait. Although, I think at that point in time when she is decidedly defeated again, I mean, just based upon her track record, I don't think she's going to concede.
You take over and under on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I
should.
I mean, again, that's going to be a whole other level of debate, because I don't understand how you can be mad because some people say that something happened in an election, but you said the same thing, but then you're mad because no one believed you, and then you don't want to believe anybody. And then I mean, if that was me, I'd be like, "See, I told you."
I told you so.
I told you so.
It would be like our friend David on his tombstone.
Yeah, like craziness. People are wild.
Yeah.
Whatever, though.
Yeah, exactly. But we also like to say a quick thank you to our affiliates, Net News Network. It's our national affiliate. You can find you can find podcasts and content providers, and not, I wouldn't say others like us, because we are very unique and one of a kind. And I think we're probably the best one that they have on that.
Yeah, but our colleagues are doing their thing. They're catching up. They're getting there. There's some pretty good podcasts and some blogs.
At least there are some, or at least people are coming forward and stepping up and putting the work in to get the messaging out.
Well, yeah, the brand's building out, and it's good.
We're still the best.
Still the best.
And we want to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First. It is a political grassroots organization that really pushes the America First agenda, and they only do so through candidates and initiatives that back the America First agenda and that fight tooth and nail to ensure that America remains the greatest nation in the country. And they do that through their platform, Vet Voice. So Vet Voice is the America First platform. You will only find content produced by those who are on the political, or who are in the political battle group. And they're fighting in the trenches, and they're fighting to make sure that America remains the greatest place that we could possibly live in the nation. Well, in the world, excuse me. We are the greatest nation. So with that in mind, let's jump right on into it. This is Justin versus Jamie, round one.
Had to put my war hat on.
Did you read what the back of that one said?
What does it say? Hell yeah.
I hadn't even seen that.
I didn't know that was on this side. This is great. For those of you who listen, it says Buck Biden. I didn't even know that was on this hat. That's even better because I'm ready to go. Because you know what? Here's the thing. And this falls right back into what my topic is going to be.
Yes.
All right. My topic is going to be war.
Okay. All right.
We briefly discussed this in the last episode. Because you being a veteran, you have feelings about war not being used, and me being a political strategist. War is a tool. It is something that is necessary in political conflict, and part of the reason why we go to war is for political means. That's it. That's the whole reason. Now, granted, and I understand there are a lot of lives that are lost, but that is part of the reason why it's such a great loss and why the gains have to be so big whenever you do go to war.
And I get that. And I want to clarify just a little bit about that. It's not that I am opposed to any actions.
You ain't a hippie.
Yeah. As far as war goes, I am only in favor of doing any such thing like that if there is a direct attack on the United States itself. Unless we are directly attacked, there is no reason why we should have Americans going boots on the ground in another part of the world where we don't have an actual interest, where that soldier that is being deployed there does not have an actual interest in losing their lives there. They're not protecting their home. They're not protecting their family. They're not protecting their loved ones. They are being sent to another area, another place in this world to fight for the interests of somebody else.
For the interest
any
of
war that we have fought, any recent, and at least, well, you could go back to World War II. Since then, every war that we fought has been for these political interests where we have not had a direct effect and are on Americans itself.
Mm-hmm. That's because political interest is the tool that war is used for. Like when you look at the magnitude of it, right? And you look at the magnitude of why you go to war, there are various reasons, and the basis is you go to war to protect your interest. Now, what the definition of your interest is usually defined by the political party in charge at the time, which again makes war an instrument that is used in politics, not necessarily for national gain, but for political one.
Now, you're not incorrect about that. But just because that's what it's done for does not mean that it is right and that it should be done.
I feel to disagree.
When you are putting somebody else's life and essentially forfeiting somebody else's life because you are wanting to further your own career, your own ambitions, your own ideology, your own goals. That, in a sense, I mean, that to me is beyond barbaric.
But in that the whole form of war anyway?
No,
that's what we've done from the beginning.
No.
That's literally what we've done from the beginning.
No.
There are literally legions that march with Alexander the Great, with every leader in the middle of a field because they believed in the leader. It's no different when the commander-in-chief goes and does it.
I don't care about Alexander the Great. I care about the Americans that are being sent off or that potentially will be sent off.
What is the difference?
They were ancient Babylonians. We are Americans.
It's the same principle, though. That's what I'm saying.
The principle I understand, but the idea behind it I understand. The principles are completely separate and completely different.
I disagree,
because you are trying to further, or you're trying to say, or so what you're saying there is that Americans are expendable if we want to enrich ourselves to gain political capital on the other side of the world. That's essentially what that is saying. No, Americans are expendable for that.
I'm not saying that Americans are expendable.
That's so.
I'm saying every life. No, I'm saying every life is valuable. Every life is valuable. But
all lives matter, Jamie.
all lives matter. But there is,
we're going to get canceled for that.
I don't care. There is the purpose of having a strong military is part of the reason why you use it.
No, the purpose of having a strong military is so you don't have to use it. It is a force multiplier. It's what it's called. Exactly. It's a force multiplier, meaning you don't have to use that. Just simply because everybody knowing that it's there, they are less likely to mess with you and to mess with your interests.
Yeah, but what happens when it doesn't? Because our bluff is being called multiple times.
Now it is, yes.
Because people have realized
a weak military now.
Here's the thing:
we have our first. I mean, we have transgender military service members.
Our military
we have
is
a woke
weakening.
Ideology that is.
Our
that's
military
what I'm saying.
Is weakening.
We're weakened. Yes,
we're weakening, right? Because this whole premise of we don't have to go to war anymore.
No. I
it's the same.
Completely disagree with that. It's weakening because of political ideologies and political agendas that are being pushed. It's the political ideologies and the political agendas, this whole woke culture that's being shoved down the throats of those who, by their very nature, should be the least woke ever. Our military shouldn't have no wokeness whatsoever in any part of its ranks at all. But yet we have an administration now that is force-feeding our bravest and our strongest, force-feeding them this crap. And it is causing them to go into this, well, maybe we should consider, fighting with dandelions and daisies rather than fighting with a brutal force of just pure savagery.
I agree with that point. But, at some point we will have to get back to the savagery.
No, we absolutely.
So what's going to happen?
Or at least the mindset of savagery, not. And when I say that, if we, unless we are directly attacked, there is nothing that we should be sending actual boots on the ground.
So what is your definition of directly attacked? Because if our interests are being attacked, then we are directly attacked.
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
No. So a direct attack would be, so I'll bring it back up again, World War II. We were directly attacked. Mm-hmm. We had to respond to that because we were directly attacked. We'll bring up the Korean War.
Well, here's the thing. The
Korean War we should have never have gotten into.
I disagree.
Why should we have joined the Korean War?
Here's the thing, right? Because the interest was to protect democracy. And right now, just like before, democracy is being threatened across the world. We can no longer sit by idly and let communism or anything of that nature happen. Now, what's happened is we have allowed for political strategies, sanctions, all these other things to kind of fester, and we started to believe that these things will actually matter, while our enemy has sat over there and said they're not going to do anything. They're just going to talk about it.
You're right. We're not going to do anything until you step up or you attack us directly. And the reason why I bring up
it's a larger threat to democracy.
The reason why I brought up World War II rather than 9/11 was because Iraq did not directly attack us in 9/11. That was more Pakistan and Afghanistan than anything else.
Mm-hmm. And a regime.
Yes. So that was more of a terrorist organization. So
then we started the war on terror.
Yes, but we invaded Iraq, which had no real links to any of that whatsoever. It was more of a kind of a it was vengeance against Saddam for an attempt on Bush, old GW's
That's
life.
Speculation. That's speculation.
No, well,
that's speculation.
There's the
reality is the reality is that the entire Middle East threatened our democracy, because though there are hubs that were larger, the heart of where we were started there.
In Iraq, no. Mm-hmm. It was in Afghanistan the entire time. Now, I will say to this point, I am grateful, or I am glad that we did go in and kill Saddam. I do believe that we should have had a better plan than what we did with it, but I am glad that we did that because my background with a lot of this was in chemical recon and decon, and I know the effects of what Saddam had used on the Kurds there with the chemical warfare. That is a very hard line in the sand for me. If that is done, you need to die. yourself.
Mhm.
So
Which
that
is
is
part of the
something
reason-
that I do agree with in that part. But at the same time, I am wholeheartedly against the fact that we did have to go over there to do it, or at least under the pretenses of what we went over there for.
Well, the lack of intelligence was there, was present, which is why there
Yeah, it
was
was in
so
the
much
White House.
mis strategy.
Well, it was in the White House. That's the reason why it was a lack of intelligence.
Lack of intelligence in the field that came back to the White House.
Lack
Lack of intelligence in the field that
disagree.
came back to the White House, right? Because you can't make it. You can only make a decision based upon the information that you have, and based on the information that you have, you have to make the best
Well, the
choice.
information that we have now says that they had no information that they were telling us that they did have.
And they know that they didn't have good information. The information they got did not fit the strategy.
Any information at all.
No, they had information.
That's that.
We can go back and look at the CIA briefings that have been declassified.
I absolutely will, because from everything that I've seen, they did not have any of the information that they came back and told us that they did have.
At the time, they thought that they had that information because their strategists and intelligence operatives were telling them that it was there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the decisions were made. You can only make decisions based upon the information that you have. Now,
well, that goes a lot to with our CIA.
Fast forward. That's why I also have a problem with why we're having the strategy that we have right now when it comes to militarized zones, right? How many times does North Korea have to shoot nuclear weapons and bombs over Japan? How many times?
Fired nuclear.
They just fired
weapons.
something this past week. They fired missiles, right? Because
rockets,
their rockets are testing to see that if they can make it,
or just trying to become relevant like they've always been trying to do.
Well, if you have a lack of resources, and here's the thing, the theory is, and this is a theory, right? IR, international relations theory, that they just don't have the capability to get a rocket far. And so when you're looking at trying to develop the capability because of your lack of resources, you want to see how far it can go. So you send out dummy missiles to see what you can do. It's almost like, what some people do believe is true with the sonic boom testing that was going on years ago in the ocean. There was this idea that certain countries were testing these sonic bombs off inside of the ocean because there were sea animals that were washing up on shore, and people were going, how did that get there? Because they all died from, basically bleeding out of the ears, sonic waves, things like that. Anyway, I digress into this. Okay. We have known intelligence that the CCP is doing genocide in a province in China. But yet, nothing is being done about it across the world because everyone just wants to act like they're scared. Same thing with Russia. Everyone is allowing for, first it was Crimea, and though I understand and I don't wish this upon anyone, but I see where we're going, that Ukraine is getting swallowed up because Putin knows that no one's going to physically come over there and stop him. That's a problem.
So at what point does that cause for Americans to have to pick up their weapons, lace up their boots, fly halfway across the world, and die on behalf of somebody else who would not have done the same thing for them?
That's the $100 trillion question. At what point? Because we get to this point every single time before a world war breaks out.
Now that point is true. That is very true. I mean, that's what Germany did in both world wars. I mean, that's what China and essentially the communists in Korea did there. Here's what they did in Vietnam.
Yeah, and here's part of where I'm thinking of this. Okay, because here's one of my biggest fears. All right. We were so successful in World War II because we got hit and we were pissed off, but Hitler made one massive mistake, and he attacked Russia in the winter. If he'd have waited, we'd been in a different situation, okay? And what I mean by that is on the other side of the world, you take away us, you take away Japan attacking us and Hitler moving into Russia, well, the Soviet Union, at a summertime frame versus a winter time frame, to where they weren't prepared to be there. because of the cold temperatures. You have to really look at what would have been the European continent at the time, and what would have happened then, and then make sure that we don't allow for a strategy, opposing strategy to that, glimpse us. Now, Russia coming down and taking Crimea, coming into the Ukraine, if they were to come in and try to do some other form of attack, if they were to find a partner who's willing to attack us, how do we make sure and strategize that? Or what is the point that we pull the trigger?
Well, I'll say this. So if Russia aligns itself with another nation that attacks us, I am not 100% sure about the legalities on this, but I do believe that would trigger Article 5 of NATO, and there would be a worldwide conflict at that point.
Now look at the opposing side, because I argued some of the other side of this on our last episode. Everyone should go back and look at it. But I see the strategy though, because taking the same point that I just made, right? When do we hop in? Like, that's the covert way of us hopping in. Is okay. Let's not just say, so we don't have to convince our people, because we have gone through iterations of that being a problem inside the United States. How do you get the United States? How do you get the U.S. people behind going to war? Right. The only way to do it is to go through an agreement. They fast track Ukraine. Ukraine becomes a part of NATO. We instantly are in a war.
Yes.
Instantaneously.
But that's not, yes. And that's something that, but there again, that goes back to the Cold War. I mean, that has been something that's been in effect for decades now. That's not something that is a direct conflict that would be applicable now, because no nation is going to attack us and to draw us in that would align with Russia, because there's no winning that.
I know, but that you see where I'm
us
going with this?
Into a large conflict, us going into a war, and outside of the shackles of what would be, I guess, put on us. The reason why we lost the Korean War, the reason why we lost the Vietnam War was because we were not directly attacked. There was no fervor.
We didn't understand the atmosphere.
That. Well, no, I disagree with that completely. I think that because we were not directly attacked, we were not directly afflicted by that war that was going on. There was no loss of American life outside of what our government was sending us over there to die for. Had another communist country that had aligned with Vietnam attacked us, and they were both allies at the time, it would have been a completely different story. We would have gone in there guns blazing. We would not have been so timid in what we're doing, and we would have glassed that and turned that entire place into an entire.
So you're saying that part of it is not necessarily a lack of understanding, which also weighs into a lack of wanting to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want to be there, you know what I mean, then it makes it hard to fight for something that you don't want to be involved in.
Exactly.
I understand that. I get that.
And that's the whole idea behind you. For us to go to war, we have to have that cause. We have to have that reason. We have to have that why we are going there to sacrifice our lives, because we were attacked while we were sleeping at home, and we lost Americans. We lost lives in that sense. And if that hadn't if that section is not part of the equation, then what reason would Americans have to want to go over there to fight and die for their country if they had not been attacked and provoked to begin with? Just like what the Japanese admiral said, I'm afraid we've awoken a sleeping giant. That's what happens when you attack America. You awaken the giant. I mean, we had people fighting and dying, committing suicide to get into the armed forces after the Japanese attacked us.
I'm pondering here, because the interesting thing is this, and I pray to God no one in my field in a higher rank hears this, because the reality is what you said is very true. If you can't motivate your people to work in any capacity, whatever your job is, whether it be in the military or anything else, it's hard to get someone to actually want to be there.
We see that in the employment field now.
So what happens if that needs to be triggered? Because what's
well, we saw that on 9/11.
You see what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
It's called the false flag.
there is it's an interesting perspective, because here's the thing: as a strategist, we don't think about that perspective. We think that, hey, this is your duty, go do it. You know what I mean? Because that's how
No, it's the strategist that comes up with that perspective.
well, because it's the strategist who does that. That's their duty. This is your task, go do it. This is your mission, go complete it. This is your order, go respond to it. Right? And when you are a think tank, you know what I mean? There's less complacency, right? But if you're the one who's out in the field, there's a different set of things that motivate you, right? That will cause other conflicts. It's an interesting point. Because if your soldiers aren't motivated to go to war, or
it's not just the soldiers, kind of.
Well, see, here's the other side of the coin, okay? Because as a strategist, the Vietnam was awful because of the fact that we did not spend enough time understanding the terrain and the atmosphere. We went into a jungle to fight guerrillas, and that in itself is awful. If you don't know where your people are going to be, if you don't know anything about the zone, then that makes it harder to build a strategy because you're not using the normal tactics that you would.
Well, that was also because that was one of the first times in history that we had embedded media in that sense, and we allowed reporters to come over with us to report and bring this information back to us rather than keeping it a blacked out zone, getting the job done and getting out.
Well, here's the thing about that too, right? Because there's always been a level of media in war, right? We go back to Revolutionary War, we go back to the Civil War. Like, there was basically a section for them that like was a no fire zone, and they were there watching the battle the entire time. There are many of stories in media and politics that talk about the correlation between the two over time.
But they weren't bringing back and sending back images of dead bodies lying in the jungle that had been blown apart. Especially Americans, sons and daughters, and with the parents not having an understanding or a real reason as to why they just lost their child.
Well, part of the reality is that blood sells. And that was for the first time, really, with Vietnam going forward, was the first time that you really saw media become a for-profit business,
the corporate vampires they are
instead of because hey, we're here too now. Hard pill to swallow, right?
That's like when I was working for the federal government. Somebody came up to me and told me, just want to say welcome to the swamp. That was a hard pill to swallow.
It's just one of those things, but as media, right, as a for-profit media, and like ourselves, there is certain things that happen in your strategy that sell and boost numbers. All right. That was the first time that had affected the relationship between media and politics. So when we look at that, how do you adapt to that, right? And then the next thing was when journalists started being captured, because beforehand that was not a thing either. It didn't matter what side of the fence you were on. You had a press pass, you went to another country, you were protected to a certain level, and then using that as a strategy for your opposition using that as a strategy to kill, harm, anything of that of your media, because citizens were off limits. Well, now nothing's off limits when it comes to war.
But it wasn't the first time the media used global conflict in order to start initiating war.
No.
I mean, that's that goes back to journalism comes from.
And that goes back to the whole political strategy, because I have to entice you and inspire you, which goes back to part of your point. As a strategist, you have to think about what is going to stir the gut enough to make sure that people react, because without a reaction, then you can't do anything politically.
Yeah, but I guess the other side of that, or the inverse of that, is you have to also calculate the effect of the democratic war theory or something along that line, to where any democratic nation can only sustain, or any administration of a democratic nation can only sustain its power and authority for so long while that country is in war, because parents will only vote for that administration for so long while their own kids are being killed in overseas. So they have to take that into account, because if that's something that they're willing to use, that has to be something that is a quick measure that goes in fast. They take out everything and they move on. I guess the exception to that rule would be the war on terror and what we did in the Middle East for 20 years. How that was able to really sustain that war effort there for as long as it did is frankly mind-blowing. We did see what, 1, 2, 3, 4 administration changes while we were there. So,
well, part of that is too because we sell freedom, and what I mean by that is this: it's in our bones. It's in our bones to be free. That's what it means to be an American. And so everyone is willing to sacrifice and fight for that at whatever level that you can.
I think that we are willing to sacrifice and fight for that for our own freedom, unless we are provoked and attacked, and then we have to respond. Outside of that, we feel because we fought and we died for our own freedom, so why shouldn't others have to do the same thing?
So I'll say it this way, right? This also comes to the difference in ideology between the two of us. And what I mean by that is when we hit the political spectrum, right? My time frame, because everyone who knows me knows that I'm a 43 fan. And part of our duty is to ensure freedom and make sure that at the bare minimum, liberty continues to reign, at least in our hemisphere.
I guess that's the reason why he was such a big proponent of open borders.
Well, here's the thing, because if we can instill liberty across the continental Americas, then we can protect freedom across the world. We want everyone to have a democracy. We want everybody to duly elect their own individual who will rule their country for whatever time frame that it wants it to be. And if someone feels that they cannot do that, or that process is hindered, then they need help from the United States. Now, I will agree that America has to come first, and we have over this time frame of the last 20 years, we have put a lack of America coming first. We have to get back to building ourselves back up, because we have lent so much help and support that we cannot forget about ourselves and American citizens. But that doesn't change the goal. The goal itself is to make sure that communism and socialism is destroyed across the world. Period.
And I would agree with that, except for the instance, I think that it needs to be those who institute that need to destroy it themselves.
Well, how can they if they can't? How can they if they can't?
But they can.
How?
If they actually rise up and stood up against the government, or rise up and stood up against these military authoritative figures. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people going up against maybe 10,000.
Let's just
they have to be willing to sacrifice if they want what we sacrifice for what we have.
Let's put it on a scale, okay? Because we laugh and talk about this. All right. Everyone talks about the Area 51 raid, you know, the Facebook group that came out where 1 million people were supposed to go out to Area 51. And for whatever reason, 1 million people thought that they could break into Area 51. You still put that same scale of resources together across another nation. How would you expect? Because everyone knows. And you know, I said this in that Facebook group because I joined it because I thought it was funny, right? there comes a point to where even the United States government will look at you and say, playtime is over. You are now on a military base, and we will kill you.
They're not going to kill all of you, but that million will eventually overrun and overthrow every part. I absolutely
don't see it.
Well, I understand more about this than what you may think with that one. Any force that outnumbers and is so overwhelming against odds like that will eventually overcome who they are attacking. There's no question about it. It will happen.
I don't see it. They got better weapons.
Doesn't matter.
I still see it. I really don't. I don't see it.
It does not. I mean, you can have 1 million people with hammers going up against 1,000 soldiers with M16s and grenade launchers, and that 1 million people will eventually overthrow those 1,000 soldiers and kill them.
If you ain't got 2 million bullets, I kind of see that. If you ain't got a way to continue to unload on people, I kind of see that. But we're talking about nations who hold all the ammo across and in other countries who hold all the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't believe that there's enough people there with sticks and stones and a few little guns to take out their militarized areas.
Let's look at it from what we did. We did not have it for the Revolutionary War. We did not have anything that the British had. We had to capture British warships and turn around and use their own firepower against them in order to eventually beat them and overthrow them.
I see that. I see where you're going with that, right? But those are different times. And here's
the same principle.
I get the principles are the same, but those are different times, right? Because here's the thing. Think about every government that has been overturned in the last 40 years, 50 years, only happened with aid.
Well, it's because of our aid and our interest in what we were
doing. They never would have been able to do it.
No, I disagree with that. It's when the people of that nation get tired enough of what's going on with it, the majority get tired enough of it, they will rise up and they will overthrow.
I just don't believe
it's the same principle of the Bolsheviks. Versus
I get it, but I mean,
law.
We can even go back to the Revolutionary War. That's
how communism came to be.
Here's the thing: there are certain points inside of.
That's how Russia was established.
There are certain points inside of the Revolutionary War to where if there weren't people who were traitors to the British nation and gave us aid, we still wouldn't have been able to do it.
I'd say I disagree with that because I just gave you another instance and another example of more modern and conventional time, or at least
talking about when the Kremlin,
relatable
when the Kremlin came to rise.
Yes,
like.
Same with the Chinese.
Again,
the people rose up and overthrew the more powerful and well
aristocracies don't really change. So it's not just when the people rise up. There are influential people who were in the old regime who made a choice. That's usually how it works. Revolutions are revolutions, and people do rise up and take it all.
The outcome's still the same. The outcome is still the same.
The outcome is still the same, but it's still
the majority overthrow the minority.
The majority became the minority.
That is an overthrow.
Yep.
Thank you. That's what I needed to hear. So moving on to the next topic. And so Jamie's going to say something because I'm going to do this in post. I do control the graphics that come on the screen. So let's just keep that in mind.
He just wants to steal the thunder because Justin feels that he won. But the reality is that
I did win.
The reality is that war is a tool that's used by political parties.
That
to
is
make sure
true.
their
That
own
doesn't
game.
mean that it's right. And that doesn't mean it should ever be used.
I feel that it is right, and I feel that it should be used. I feel like that's part of the purpose.
Enlist in it then.
Hey, I get it.
If it's a tool that should be used,
I get it. It's not fair.
It's a tool that is something that should be done. Then, if you feel that strongly about it, then you become the hammer. I'm just saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm just saying, and I know that sucks. I say that's one thing. The thing. I wholeheartedly believe with every fiber of my being that if you're going to be the commander in chief, you have to have prior military service. That should be a requirement across the board. Because if you're going to command soldiers, you should have experience as being one. I think you should have an understanding, but I don't know about an experience being one. Oh, yeah. If you're going to send somebody to die, you should have at least had the you should have the balls to have signed your name on the list to be in their shoes.
Not everybody has that option though.
Oh, they absolutely do.
No.
Unless you're well, actually, I was going to say, because at one point in time they were taking folks that would have been banned from a lot of that, but no, you absolutely have that option.
Not everybody has that option.
Oh yeah,
a lot of people go to MEPS, don't make it.
That's because they didn't want it. If they had actually gotten there and they actually tried and applied themselves and they had followed through and got the waivers that would have allowed for them to be able to do it,
a lot of people
they
can't
absolutely
get it.
There was a blind Army captain that was in the military, a blind Army captain that was leading soldiers. You're telling me that that not everybody can get into it? Yes, they can. Unless you're a quadriplegic or a paraplegic or something along that nature. And even then, some of them are still in the military.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of people who apply. A lot of people don't get in.
Because they didn't do well enough. There are standards within the military. And if they're not able to meet the minimum standards to get in the military, how in the world should they be able to meet the minimum standards to be the leader of the free world?
Never know. Lives change. Options happen.
Anyway, we like to.
Justin's upset because he lost.
No. I'm upset because he realizes he's arguing a losing point, and he's starting to revert to grade school antics on that one.
That's not grade school antics.
So
not
we
everybody
like to remind all of our viewers that make sure you hit the like button and the share button on any of our content that you see on any other platforms. Make sure you're also subscribing to that so you can stay up to date on all of our content and see Jamie's losing, scowling, crying, teared up face.
See, I'm laughing, and he's the only one who's resulted in middle school tactics.
This episode. And head over to our website at conservativestalk.org and hit the sponsor tab and help us out with what you're able to with that. So now we get into my topic.
Fight. What's your topic, Justin?
So we spoke about fundamental differences between you and I. For, I would say, 98% of everything that we discuss, we have a common understanding and a common agreement on. However, I know inherently that we do 100% differ on this approach of how we do things. For me, I am very brazen. I'm going to be very confrontational. I'm going to be very in your face. I'm going to really put everything on you. I am going to let everybody see where you are with everything. I'm going to make everything about you as absolutely transparent as absolutely possible. My argument with that is how is it that you believe that the smoke-filled backroom deals are better than transparency and putting everything out there and making it to where everybody can see what's going on?
Do you play poker?
Oh, I do.
Here's the thing.
Again, lives aren't poker.
No, everything is chess, though.
Chess is different. Chess is strategy. Chess doesn't require
just because you don't like
something and then not making a tell.
Just because you don't like your opponent doesn't mean that you should blurt out all their next moves or blurt out all your next moves.
Well, you don't have to have next moves when you go in for a kill shot on the first move. When it's checkmate on the first move you make.
Look, here's the thing. Kill shots on the let's back up for a second, right? Kill shots on the first move only works when you're dealing with someone who has less weight than you. Because if someone is stronger than you are, someone has more resources, war chest is larger, you're never going to kill anyone on the first shot. And here's the other thing.
Hubris is a very powerful
you only
powerful
wish,
tool.
because all confrontation does is polarize people. And you polarize people too much, eventually there's no one that's going to fight with you.
I disagree with that.
Because you're constantly at war.
Yes.
Eventually you're going to fall out.
No.
Yes. Not everybody is going to continue to go to bat for someone who wants to go to war with every topic.
Not every topic.
That's confrontation.
That's not every topic,
every time, not everything has to be to an extreme level of aggression.
That is not what confrontational politics is.
Okay, enlighten me.
So confrontational politics, for those who don't really know the vernacular behind that, it is kind of the theory or the mindset of making sure that you are in the face, are getting up close and really being a loud voice for something that you are fighting for what you are believing in, and that's what you want changed or what you don't want changed. And like, for instance, walking up to use an example or use kind of a hypothetical here, walking up to a state senator with your cell phone in hand and demanding that they answer a question that a lot of people want answered, and based upon their answer that you're giving, putting that out publicly and letting everybody know where this particular senator is standing on that issue, and then having a flood of people coming in and overwhelming that state senator and saying, hey, we want you to do this on this way. That's confrontational politics.
Okay. So how effective was that?
That's very, very effective.
Depending. It may be effective once, but what if they reelect him and you try the same strategy again? How many times can you go to well on that?
Well, the thing about it is it's so effective that you're only doing that with key issues. You're not doing that on, say, House Bill 26285 that says,
so what are you doing on key issues?
I want to change the what the laundry label reads.
So what are you doing? So here's the other thing too.
Gun rights, abortion. You're doing that.
How would you not know that they wouldn't go ahead and vote for you that way anyway?
Because they are refusing, number one, to
say refusing to answer,
also having a history of never supporting it before.
Refusing to answer,
and the history
is
that they never
not
answered
the
before.
Same thing as going against you.
But the history of them never supporting it before and actually actively working against it.
So they have a voting record that doesn't support it?
Yes.
So in this hypothetical, someone who doesn't have a voting record, so how are they elected anyway?
Just a hypothetical. This actually this happened just what is it, 2021. This is what happened to get our constitutional carry passed. Here in Georgia.
That everybody said was going to get passed anyway. That was a strategy of the governor to get passed beforehand.
That's because there were people that were on the governor's ass. That were on the governor's backside, trying and were pushing him to hold him accountable to what he said prior in the campaign.
I feel like he'd have done it anyway, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, I mean, here's what I'm saying. You said, that's speculation.
And speculation, because here's the thing, right? There are things you can be confrontational all day, you can be as loud as you want to, but the reality is the deal's done in the room. The deal's not done because someone yelled at you. The deal's not done because
it's not just someone, it's a loud chorus of people yelling at you.
Wouldn't matter.
Oh, it does.
It doesn't matter.
Very much so.
The reality is it doesn't matter. The perception is that it does.
No, the reality is that it does.
The perception is that people feel the pressure, people feel threatened, people feel that is okay. But anyone who's been in the trenches before, that don't matter to them.
Have you paid much attention to the political landscape now? People on the right are. So this is the reason. This is actually how the left got to be so powerful. People on the right are now realizing that, and they're applying the same methods to their ideologies, and it is being very effective on legislators.
It's still a strategy, but you'll die out in a couple years, just like every other strategy does before.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah, just like every other strategy before.
We'll see about that, because this is something that's not
deals
going away,
are done behind the room.
It will work, and people will see that it works, and they are tired of not having that voice that they
have the voice, beforehand. But just because someone just sits up there and yells all the time, and they're pissed off, and I'm mad about this, and I'm mad about that. Eventually, those people are going to get.
You're talking about one person. I'm talking about.
I'm not talking about one person. I'm talking about a whole course of people. That's interchangeable. Interchangeable. They can come up there all day long. People can come to whatever function they want to and yell. That only deters people from actually doing what they want them to.
I would disagree with that.
People who are influencing behind the scenes are the ones who make them do it.
I agree to that with some point, but those people don't last very long in today's climate.
We'll see.
Okay, Liz Cheney.
Liz Cheney wasn't the one to make
Okay,
deals
Adam
in the back
Kinzinger.
room. One of the ones making it in the back room.
Okay, Peter Major. Yeah, actually, those were the exact people that were making deals.
They were
in the
fading
back
out
room.
anyway. The deals that are being made in the back room are how some people are getting
out.
there.
Okay. They were fading out because of their positions.
You think Liz Cheney was already fading out?
Liz Cheney came from one of the most prominent political dynasties in the entire
But you didn't think that
history
she was
of the
already
country.
fading out?
No, she wasn't at that
She
point
was
until she started making the choices that she made.
Let me tell you something.
Going against the
that
voters.
whole era was fading out the moment that Jeb Bush decided to run for president.
You mean the Bush era
The
was
Bush
fading out?
Mm-hmm. Been fading out. Because political strategies changed. And I get you. Confrontational
political
politics.
strategies changed. Absolutely. It's confrontational now.
Confrontational politics is what's used up front, just like the Ron Paul people and the Tea Party before and everything
They weren't
else.
effective because they weren't a chorus.
Oh, so
they weren't a chorus.
So they're different.
Yes, they were not a chorus.
Well, the last time I checked, the only thing that's lasted this entire time is the establishment who makes sure that that things are done behind.
Hold on. So you're saying that the only thing that has lasted has been the establishment.
The establishment Republican structure.
The thing about that is a lot of what you keep saying is that all of these people after 2 years become the establishment anyway. So by your theory, even the Tea Party becomes the establishment.
Some Tea Party candidates were in, but the whole structure, they're no longer Tea Party candidates. They're no longer Ron Paul era candidates. We just refer to them that way.
Okay, Tom Graves.
Well, hey, he left on his own accord.
Well, Tom Graves ran as, and I'll agree with you to that point. Tom Graves ran as Tea Party candidate and became not Tea Party. But yeah, but no, where the current shift and everything is where it's going, especially with as much social pressure that can be applied to these legislators.
Perception.
No, there is no perception of that. It is actual pressure. They are feeling this, and it is changing the way things are done. Because the funny thing about it is even the donors are beginning to get like that now.
The donors are shifting because they understand. I told you the aristocracy never changes.
Well, the donors are shifting because they realize that this is working.
Because the establishment never changes.
Because it shifts every 2 cycles, apparently. If you're outside the establishment, you become the establishment after 2 cycles, according to your theory.
You get inducted. But the people who work those back rooms say, hey, here are the candidates. Here are the strategy. Here's how the atmosphere has changed. Here's how you keep the train moving.
Not anymore. And we've seen that across the country.
Oh, we'll see. Hey, look, hey, I will give you this. Okay. You lasted longer than most people thought. The MAGA era lasted longer than most people thought. Confrontational politics. Hey, look, I'm telling you.
I take exception to that. I do.
Look,
because
I loved it. And hey, I'll tell you,
as an American, my first priority is to make America great.
Oh, look, I get it. I love it too. That's again, I say I came up in that era to understanding that our role as America is protecting democracy across the globe. We sell freedom. But I agree, we cannot sell freedom at the expense of America.
But
which is
American blood.
Which is no. Which is the same thing that I feel a lot of other Americans are understanding now too. We did not like the way that it was done beforehand. We did not like confrontational politics. It was not the thing for us.
Jamie's scared because he's feeling threatened because his
no one's feeling threatened.
Backroom influence is weakening.
No, it's not weakening at all.
it's running higher into the public sphere as opposed to the backroom deals that keep going on.
Nah, no one's feeling threatened.
You can continue to tell yourself all you want.
No one's feeling threatened at all. That's the beautiful part about it. We're actually starting to like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the perception that they have now is that they can come back in and influence those who are confrontational into doing what they want them to do and to getting into these legislative spaces.
That's not necessarily true. Necessarily.
That's not necessarily true. That was kind of was that a double negative? And meaning, are you speaking in coded languages? Is this 102 time? You should start counting up the letters that were in that sentence there, because that was a message to you guys. So just ears just perked up there. You'll know when you know.
You'll know when you know. And if you already know, you know.
Art of war.
The thing is, art of war. The thing is, right? We talk about this, and we talked about this since the beginning of political strategies, right? Which is why even I hate the man's guts, but even why people like Barry Goldwater were so effective is because when you look at the time frame and the era, what is the best thing to continue the progression of the ideology and sustaining the principles that we all commonly share? But again,
you're talking late 60s, early 70s.
It's still the same principles that apply now.
The whole methodology has changed. It is an entirely different landscape. Jamie, I need you to come out of your little hole and not see your shadow.
So here's the thing.
And stay out, because winter's gone, buddy. Winter's over with.
Winter's coming.
No, the winter's gone. You can come out now.
Here's the thing, okay? Right. If y'all believe in such transparency in every conversation that these so truly transparent politicians, why isn't all recorded? It should be a 24-hour live show
involving a lot of what there's. I agree with you 100%.
That's what I'm saying. That's it.
I agree with you 100%.
Hey, if that's it, then
and
do
every
it.
Open,
but until then, there's a room for a deal. There's always going to be where the deal is actually made at the table. Now there's a public record usually. There's usually public record. Yeah, caucus has records. There's usually done out in open.
No.
Are people actually going to go in front?
No, caucus meetings are not open to the public. Caucus meetings are closed.
Show up. They can show up and be outside.
They can't be in the room. They can't hear the conversations. They can't see what's going on. They can't see the votes.
You don't make a vote in caucus.
Yes, you do.
Nope. You
absolutely do.
No, that's like executive session
right there.
You got a little hot pitch, but it's like executive sessions. You know what I mean?
You make votes and decisions in executive session.
You discuss them, but you have to come back out to the public to make the vote.
No, in caucus, you absolutely vote. Absolutely, 150%. There are votes made in caucus.
Hey, been
they're party wide. No, because I can't go into them.
So how do you know that they're making a vote? No, because they're not.
I can't disclose that information. Okay.
They have to come out into the public in front of a public meeting to make certain things on the books. Now, there may be things that can be either litigious or, the purpose of personnel or purpose of property or anything that falls within
internal caucus or policies, procedures, and moves along that nature. No, those things do not come out there.
They can. Yeah.
No, they.
Some things have to be. Hey, if it has to involve the public legally, it has to come out.
But it doesn't have to always involve the public.
The discussion doesn't. The discussion does not always have to involve the public. That goes back to strategy. Yeah.
But anything that involves the actual organization of the caucus does not have to be publicly disclosed.
Same thing with executive session. You're right. It doesn't. But
includes votes that obtain to the caucus.
They do not vote inside of there. They legally can't. You have to be organized inside of a public hearing to vote on most of it.
That is only if That is only if it is a governmental organization. A caucus is not a governmental organization.
Okay.
The law only applies to that setting.
Okay.
Fatality.
As always, we like to remind our viewers to make sure they are hitting the like button and the share button on any of the content that they come across on any of our platforms that we put out there. And make sure you're hitting the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with any of our content and see Jamie losing regularly to me on multiple platforms across the social media. And make sure you're also going to conservativestalk.org and hitting the sponsor tab and helping us out with what you're able to.
I will say, what's it been now? 4 years or so. It's pretty. I'm telling y'all
lasted longer than what you.
Y'all lasted longer than what we thought.
I will say, no, I'm not going to say that.
No, go ahead.
No,
Why not? This is a pretty wild show. This is going to be good.
Well, I don't have enough time to go in and add all the expletives that would. This does take time.
It would be a long bleep.
And a lot of just blurs that come out.
I'm telling you, I will say this though. I will say this. I've been involved in this 16 years. I say the first like 3 or 4 really don't count, right? This has been my favorite era in politics. Because I feel like y'all are like me. Like, you know, sometimes you're confrontational. Sometimes you do cut backroom deals. Because it's just, you know, that's MAGA.
Moving on to the next topic. I'm not even going to touch that. That's just a waste of time.
Final round. Fight.
If you saw our episode 32, where we asked why we are even still involved in Iran, you would have heard that one of the topics and issues that were brought up was universal health care.
Mm-hmm.
And we did say that we wanted to really flesh this out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because it's originally a Republican strategy. Well, a conservative strategy.
No.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't at all.
Yes, it was.
No.
And it still is.
No.
If you believe in states' rights, then you should.
No.
Yes. Yes.
This was a 19th century European strategy that originally started it out. I believe it was in Germany. There are 3 categories of it. That
I was mainly talking about the Conservative Party in the UK, but yeah, go ahead.
No, that being the socialist medicine, your single payer type of healthcare, and then your universal healthcare. The universal healthcare didn't come along until the mid 1900s. Then that's when you started to see a lot of kind of European nations moving to it. You saw Canada move to it. You saw some of the South American nations move to it. But the thing about every single one of those is that you saw a massive decline in not only the quality of healthcare that you receive, but the quantity of healthcare that you could receive, as well as the innovation in healthcare in general.
I beg to differ, right? Because
okay, let's hear this.
Here's the thing, you know, and I have a different strategy for how it does in the US, but you know, New Zealand probably has the best universal healthcare system in the entire world. Europe really isn't that bad. I have a friend who went to the University of Hawaii. He's Hawaii. And
I'm gonna this. He just didn't. Okay, poke.
So before we go to that, Justin's like, you know, it's Polk County, right? I'm like, no, it's Polk County. And so,
for those of you who don't know, it's spelled Polk.
It's Polk County.
Polk.
So
not poke.
So he's like, I can't believe that you're going to actually announce Hawaii properly, but you won't say Polk County.
It's Hawaii, not Hawaii.
Hawaii. Hawaii.
That's what you're saying.
Hawaii.
You're not Polynesian.
There's a comma in between the eyes.
You are not Polynesian. You are a Southern black man. You are not Polynesian. All right.
But I can say Polk.
Polk, not Poke.
It's Polk County. Hey, at least I took the S's off of Cave Springs. Because
I quit.
I digress, right? The biggest shock to my friend was him and his wife. They moved to Hawaii to
Hawaii.
so he could get his master's from the university. All right. In that time frame, they got pregnant, and the biggest shock of their life was when they actually got a medical bill, because in a lot of other first world countries, they don't do that. And the thing about it is this, and this is why it's part of a conservative principle. Our job as conservatives is to be physically conservative. And when we look at our GDP, when we look at unemployment, you never really can bottom out unemployment. You never really can bottom out some of these numbers, just surely the fact of certain circumstances inside of the condition of people. So
you mean like folks not wanting to work and have jobs?
No, I'm talking about the people who outside of that factor, right? You can add in those people as the factor of like, that's the problem, right? But there are other people who have medical disabilities. There are other people who have
different though.
What I'm saying is this, though, if you'd let me finish,
they don't factor into unemployment.
They
not the percentage of unemployment. They don't factor in.
Let me finish. Okay.
Well, let's hear it then.
There is a portion of the population who is working or who does not work, or is a spouse of someone who does not work, who does factor in because of certain different situations. Okay. One way to remove certain elements out of our GDP calculation is to have portions covered. Here's why universal health care is valuable. Is because there's roughly 5 to 7% of the population who could have aged out and retired, but they're still working because they cannot afford insurance on what their fixed income would be, who are just solely working for insurance. If we were to do some form of state-ran universal health care system across all 50 states, there's no mandate to be paid, but there was a way for those individuals to be able to receive benefits, not the broken Medicare and Medicaid system that we have, but a way for those people to receive benefits that can take care of them long term. Then they would be able to move out of the workforce, and a whole nother era of people can come into the workforce. Now, the way that we established it nationwide and then forced it with a tax and a mandated tax that where everyone had to pay whether you paid into the system or not, that's socialism.
So
but Obamacare was a copy of, we'll just call it Massachusetts Care, where it worked for a very long time across the state of Massachusetts and still works, to where those people who need to age out or those individuals who need assistance can still stay within some form of healthcare and receive full covered costs.
So what you're describing is, one, not universal health care at all.
No, it's a part of the universal healthcare system.
Universal health care is essentially a required slush fund of healthcare costs that every person in the state or nation or country or whatever pays into. No, that's actually the definition of universal health care. Pays into that, then the government takes and negotiates with private healthcare providers at a rate that would then be able to be used and applied. The failure with that is that, we see the government negotiating anything is going to drive the cost through the roof, because every private institution out there knows and realizes they're going to be able to fleece the government for millions and billions of dollars in some cases in multiple categories in multiple areas. So anything involving the government or anything involving state run, the only thing that can provide a better quality service at a lower price is to privatize it. That is the universal truth. When something is privatized, it is offered at a better quality at a lower cost, because you have to compete against other institutions and other providers that would offer a better quality product at a lower cost. So you're trying to give out the best quality product that you can at the absolute lowest cost that you can still drive a profit on, in order to maintain and keep people buying your product and buying and using your services. So that's just a universal truth there. But because the universal healthcare system allows for the government to oversee all of that, all of these institutions are going to come in and fleece this for more than what they were doing. And the thing about the Massachusetts deal is everybody in Massachusetts was paying through the nose in taxes because of that. So are you advocating for a tax hike increase?
No. What I'm really advocating for is more of a nationalized system, because that's the only way that you can fix healthcare. Hey, think about whatever you want to, but there are a lot of people who are affected, and we can sit here and we can argue and we can dispute privatized being better, but the reality is people are hurting. People can't afford to go to the hospital, and if we don't find a way to fix it by using the resources that are available, then we're going to continue to suffer and hurt American people. So we can argue principles and points, and we can argue definitions, but the reality is that there is a universal healthcare system that would allow for people to be able to live a good life outside of having to work 99% of their life away, only to be able to afford to make sure that they can die in a hospital bed.
One of the reasons why we have such extraordinarily high medical costs is because
it's not nationalized.
No, because you have people that come in, have these have these procedures done, and then they either A, decide not to pay, or B, the government, not just because they can't, they just decide not to.
No, there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people who can't pay.
Come in and negotiate these terms, and then say, "Hey, well, you didn't meet this standard with the terms that we negotiated, so we're not paying for it." That happens quite a bit, actually, a lot.
And they can write it off and everything else, and the government will subsidize for it. Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Medicaid, no, that won't be written off.
No.
That's lost profits.
There's a strategy for why certain medical bills can be written off. Yes. Certain expenses are written off, and the hospital can call them as a loss, and they can receive compensation for a certain portion of it from the government. Yep. That's why I say if we went ahead and just nationalized healthcare, we wouldn't be in a lot of situations that we are. 50% of our debt,
completely private.
50% of our national debt comes from those losses.
Or just
from medical cost losses.
Well, what was it?
So make it completely private. Make it completely private.
Is covered.
So what happens?
Medicare, Medicaid.
So here's the thing. What happens?
Social Security.
So what happens when we completely privatize it, 100%, and someone goes in there and they says, "Oh, we looked and we just don't feel that you, by your demographics, have the ability to pay. We can refuse your service. We just don't want to help you."
Demographics.
Yeah. By anyone can choose to serve anyone that they want to in a private business.
No.
Oh, you can't.
You can be sued for that pretty dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a violation of your civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
And that would actually be a violation of I forgot what it was, but yeah, the Civil Rights Act.
People who refuse care all the time, and they don't have the ability to pay.
Not by demographics.
Yeah, literally by race. Oprah did a whole show on it. You can look it up. People have been refused health care for decades by the color of their skin because of fully privatized hospitals, and they don't have the capability to sue, so the hospital just takes the risk on doing it. people don't receive the care that they need or are misdiagnosed because they feel that in their private hospital, they'll never be able to receive a check from it.
So I will say this. Well, at that point in time, then you have the hospital down the street that allows for that person.
Sometimes you don't have a hospital down the street.
Well, that's
sometimes there's no other option.
Allowing more of a privatized nation to allow the competition to come in and allow that to be done.
If hospitals didn't have to worry about their bottom line, a lot more people will receive care, because a lot of people really do want to hold true, but a lot of times you get people in there because it's a moneymaker. You really weed people out if you fix the system and deflate the cost because of certain elements that are already instilled into it, and that will only happen once you nationalize it.
Well, then, so you take
the same strategy behind universities,
mindset and this principle. So if you are doing that, then you are affixing a bottom line for the ability for a person or for saying income based. So the income perspective, that by saying that, you are essentially saying that you can only make this much money in a given year because the government's only going to pay this much in a given year. And that does not equate over to allowing for, say, a genius from India to come over here and work in our hospitals, spend a decade researching a cure for a disease or a new surgical procedure that would save lives that had never been done before. And because they would not be able to take that new innovation and apply it and allow for others to come in and have this potentially risky surgery done, because the government would have said, well, that's not really something that we feel is a safe bet to be done, so we're not really comfortable in paying for that. So there's no innovation. There's no reason or motivation to gain or to grow with that.
That's a hypothetical that we don't know the answer of. And I'm not saying that I know all the answers. What I am saying is this.
Though. You keep forgetting this. I do know.
We all wish we knew. The reality is this. The most broken system that we have in America. I take that back. I will take that back.
I was about to say, please say what you're about to say.
The second most broken system that we have in America is our healthcare system. The first one is the fact that
federal government's involved in it.
No, the first one is the fact that we still have homeless people. That we still have people living on the street. That there's not a facility that we have that we can try to formulate, or we have not come together to fix certain elements of homelessness. That's the first problem. We're sending billions of dollars across the world, but there's still people out there hungry. Right? So that's the first problem. Second problem is that healthcare is something that people should be able to go and receive.
So you're saying it is a fundamental right to receive healthcare?
I do believe so.
No. Healthcare is absolutely not a fundamental right.
Okay. You can think that way all you want to.
Yeah, because anything that you can take steps on your own to ensure that you have.
I don't believe in people dying because
people
they're
die
poor
every day.
Because they're poor. Because they couldn't receive help, because there was someone who was not willing to help them for whatever reason. If there's a facility, if there is someone who can help someone, then I believe that if there's a method to help more people live, then we should look into the strategy and figure it out.
Jamie, people don't live forever.
Yeah, I know.
Do I need to hold your hand right now for this? I don't think you realize and understand that. I mean, people don't live forever. That's we have a finite time on this earth.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure you understood that point.
So, in the innovation that we've done as a society, just because you just don't have the money, you should die. That's basically what you said.
No, that's not what I said.
No.
Although I would say that, personal choices have consequences.
Cancer is a personal choice.
Well, if you smoke, drank, and
So a random
lived a
tumor,
life.
random brain tumor.
Studies show that those things are not just completely random. There are things that progress into that. So what you're saying is that me as a healthy person should be paying into a system to where I am
No,
then
I'm not saying you should
supporting.
pay into a system.
That's what universal healthcare is. I'm paying into the slush fund that's going to pay for this. That would then pay into and support this person that randomly. That's essentially what it is. It's a medical slush fund.
Medical slush fund.
Mm-hmm. What else would you describe it as?
Oh, I don't know. FHA.
Slush fund.
Interesting. So Justin wants people to die. That's fine. I want people to go to war. So whatever.
Justin understands that people die.
I know. Justin gets why people die and can die on American soil in the healthcare facilities, but doesn't understand why people can go over in a war and die.
Because their government's sending them over to die. And
but the government's
other
not going to
is,
protect them from dying?
Why should the government have the responsibility of protecting them from dying from personal choices that would have been made by them? Because
that's an interesting perspective.
A vast majority of the reasons why medical conditions now in the United States are at the point to where they are is because we don't have a system of what is known as preventative care. We have a system that is reactionary care. We react to diseases and illnesses. And by the time that we go in to see a medical provider, it's often to the point to where we are paying a lot more for it. Versus if we had a preventative medical system, we would be going to these medical providers more often, paying a lower cost and not having to rely on that reactive care that is ultimately much more expensive and extensive.
So why do you think that we have a reactive care system?
Because we as a nation don't take a look at what's going on in our bodies on a day-to-day basis.
But why?
As opposed because we're so so economically driven. We don't take the time to do that.
You're getting there. Why?
Because we're trying to make money to have a good life.
Why?
And I'm not going to pay for others to have that life.
Why?
Oh my gosh. Why?
No, here goes.
Why?
No.
Are we there?
Because you're not letting me finish.
Are we there yet?
You're not letting me finish before all I can get out is why before you say something. Why have we not shifted to a preventative care system, in your opinion? If we understand that going to the doctor more, why is it that majority of the people wait until they literally cannot stand it anymore to go to the doctor?
Are you finished?
Mm-hmm.
Because I just answered that. Because we are so economically driven. We don't have the mindset of where we need to make sure that we're healthy, make sure that we're well, to make sure that we're not.
It's because we don't have the
50
means.
Pounds overweight.
Because we don't have the means. We don't have the means to go to the doctor.
Blood pressure's through the roof, to where we take the time to really look after ourselves as opposed to taking the long-term approach to these things. We want the short-term, give me type of reaction.
It's because we don't have the means to go to the doctor.
No,
we have the means to go to McDonald's because it's cheap and it's right there in our face. If we had,
you want to make cheap right there in your face medical care?
No, but what I'm saying is if that
we have those called urgent care. If
the cost was more efficient and more effective, well, I mean that's why urgent cares were created.
I mean,
was
Walmart
because it was they do now. But you know why they pushed it to it? Because they realized that more people would use preventative care if it was more cost effective for them, which is why you have people like Amazon and Walmart moving into the healthcare field, is because the cost of the medical field has gone so high that they realize that the average citizen cannot afford it. So they have to fill the market somewhere.
They don't do preventative care in these positions. They do maintenance care and reactive care, not preventative. Preventative care is very light.
If you don't feel if
preventative care is very light, it's checking your blood pressure, making sure you're eating correctly, making sure that your
regular checkup stuff.
Yes,
your regular checkup stuff.
Yes,
more people would go to. A lot of people go to urgent cares to get preventative care.
It's
because
$50 a visit.
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling me that is so outside the realm of possibility that somebody could?
For some people, yeah.
Well, that sounds like that leads to some personal life choices to me. Call me cold-hearted if you want to, but that sounds like some personal life choices.
That's interesting.
You say that like you're writing down on a little piece of paper while I'm laying down on a couch.
I mean, I'm just thinking about the fact that we're in a very high harvest area in the state to where $50 is a lot of money.
Well, if your health care is that important to you, that becomes a priority. And then a lot of these other things, like your cell phone, your high-speed internet, your cable TV.
There are a lot of people who have none of that and still can't afford health care.
Again, that's also leads back to those life choices. Don, you guys,
Yeah. Hey, I ain't got nothing to say. I live a great life. I love my doctor. But, there are people out there, especially in our area, who, they would love to go see a doctor, but they just can't. And their life choices, or the fact that they had the lack of resources, or for whatever reason, they're in that situation.
So if they were part of this medical slush fund, they would still have to pay that money into it in order to take part in the system anyway.
Not if it was nationalized.
Yes, no, absolutely. If it was nationalized, because everybody that receives any sort of money would have to pay into that system in order for it to be universal.
Nah.
It's literally what the system is. Everybody has to pay into it.
Everybody doesn't have to pay into it. That's what I'm telling you. That's the perfect ability of being a sovereign. You really can. You can really redistribute, or you can distribute however is necessary.
So others pay into it more than what others would be in order to make up
I'm not
for
saying
the
that either.
gap that would have been
I am literally not
it.
saying I know how to fix the problem.
I am.
I'm saying I do not know how to fix the problem.
I'm saying that I know how to fix a problem.
And I'm saying you're wrong. That's not it. That's not the solution that we're looking for.
But yet you said you don't know what the solution is.
Yeah.
So how do you know that mine's wrong?
Flawless victory.
Oh, good point. But I'm pretty sure that if that was the solution,
And
then we wouldn't have a
like
problem.
always, we like to remind you.
If that was the solution, we wouldn't have the problem. Because that's what got us in the situation that we're in.
Or the government's just trying to take another massive power grab and pick up all of this extra cash use the slush fund that they did with Social Security. It's the same thing they did with Social Security. Is the exact same. They use Social Security as slush fund. I mean, literally sitting in our treasury is a giant IOU for the Social Security.
No, well, that's why you make sure that good politicians are elected who have transparency, that don't.
Through confrontational politics. And as always, we like to make sure that our viewers make sure they hit the like button and the share button on all of our content. That way they'll stay able to have a broader reach, and they hit the subscribe button so you can see more content like this. See, although Jamie and I, we don't always agree on everything, we still have a good time with our disagreements. And
go to war. Universal healthcare saves lives. And
definitely didn't ask your input on that.
Yeah.
And
Justin's cold-hearted.
Make sure you're going to conservativestalk.org and hitting the sponsor tab if you'd like to see more content with us and helping us to be able to have a broader reach and a wider spread in getting our message out a lot further. I want to say a quick thank you to Net News Network, Veterans for America First, and of course, as always, Vet Voice. So, Jamie, would you like to do your favorite part?
Yes. 31 days, I almost forgot how many days, 31 days until we cancel Stacey Abrams, and this is no longer a thing, and she is gone, and we protect Georgia's lives, and then we will start Georgia's universal healthcare system. Totally kidding. I
Jamie just canceled us.
I was waiting for that reaction.
Wow. Jamie just got us canceled. All of our subscribers or our sponsors just said, yep, cancel that one. Poop. Please don't do that.
Well, I'm going to say as a last thought, I I think that the things that we truly agree on are great principles, and in theory, I think that we all want the same thing. I don't think anybody ever wants to go to war, although there is an argument that can be made. I don't think that anyone believes in truly no form of a governmental and private, a public and private partnership in healthcare, because I think that's the only way that it's going to work. We can look at it in multiple ways, and we can argue the point of nationalizing it, right? But the thing is that in America, if we want to keep the values that we have, that there's no way that you can get out of having that public-private partnership to continue capitalism. Otherwise, all you have is socialism. That's my final thought.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
What do you mean?
How can it be socialism if it's anything other than a private
what I'm saying
public
is that a public-private partnership prevents socialism.
I would say purely private prevents that pretty well.
Jesus Christ. I don't know how you work for a government and that's right. You're only in year 4.
Number one, I don't work for the government.
Oh, that's right, not anymore. You see how bad it gets?
I don't work for the government, okay?
Lifer.
And on that note,
Justin's going to be a lifer.
This has been Conservatives Talk, and we will see y'all next week.
Justin's lifer. Justin's going to join us all.